Good afternoon from Seattle. We're kicking off the legal blogging in 45 chapters for again this week. We're already up to chapter 23. We took last week off for a breather, and we'll continue through probably the remainder of this month, taking one item each day as to effective blogging. And when I'm talking about effective blogging, I'm really talking about raising your profile as a lawyer, building a book of business. Maybe it takes a year, maybe it takes 2 years, but certainly something that is networking through the internet, taking you someplace you might not have gone before in a period of time of 1 to 2 years versus something that traditionally when I was a lawyer may have taken 15, 20 years to get on boards, establish your name, build a good reputation as a trial lawyer, which I was. So today we're talking about blogging in a conversational tone. Now that may not apply to every blogger because there might be bloggers that have a really tight niche and they're just reporting. So what they're doing is acting as a funnel for news and just reporting on things so that people can get information from that person on just that subject because it's the only place in the world to go to get that information. But most bloggers are not there for various reasons. They're trying to cast a broader net, they're too scared to go after a niche, they don't want to just report on a subject, so they tend to be a little bit broader, even if they are on niches. And in that case, I think they need to add some conversational tone to their blog. And that's what blogging was when it started. It was the idea that you could hear the person talk to you, you could get their tone of voice, you could feel them behind the scenes. Otherwise, you could just have somebody writing up content for you. And believe me, there's a lot of marketing companies and people that will sell their writing and just give it to lawyers and say, hey, this is accurate. But really nobody knows who's behind that person. And when you're the consumer of legal services, whether you're a corporation, a small business, a consumer, you want to know who's behind it. You want to know their level of care. You want to know the way they talk. When you come into their office, you want to feel like you already know them. You trust them. And a lot of that comes from that tone of voice, what you could feel through their writing. I always tell lawyers, it's not a sloppy conversation. It's not an informal conversation. What would be a dinner conversation that you might have with clients? Because then you're on guard. You're a little bit more professional. You're listening before you're even expressing yourself. So you are polished in your approach. It's not just winging it and leaving it out there. One thing that I should mention, though, is some people will say, well, gee, this is going to be up there forever, And I say, well, that's what's great about it. The other things that you say at other places go out into space. They disappear. When you get to provide your insight and commentary on a particular issue, it does stay forever. And that way people can find it and see that you've been covering this issue for years, or they also see that you actually have some insight and commentary on this issue where other people have never seen it. So when somebody says it's going to be up there forever, then just say, that is what was so great about blogging. That's not something we should be afraid about. That's something we should cherish. This is not a brief and it's not a white paper. So you're not taking something that would be a memorandum to the court and repurposing it and turning it into a blog post. And it's very droll to do that. This is not a white paper that you're submitting to someone. It's not that type of thing. It is totally different than that, in my opinion. There are some lawyers that blog like that, and I'm not sure that they achieve the success that others do without weaving in, some tone of their voice. You can engage by referencing. So when you think of blogging as a conversation, which I've talked about before, if I reference something that you have written, you're going to see it because I'm going to say that Patricia Smith had an interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning about this, that, and the other thing, and I'm going to take a block quote and I'm going to provide my insight and commentary, and she went on to say this, and I provide my insight and commentary. We're literally having a conversation. She began it, or maybe she referenced off something else. I continued it by offering my take, and now she's going to see that I provided that take. That's a very conversational tone because I'm providing some insight in response to it. And people appreciate that level of conversation and reporting. It's just the way that news is even reported today. It's like you're providing commentary on TV to a news story that happens some other place. And what you're doing with your blog is you're building that network of influencers who's going to start to know you, because if you don't share the blog post and reference Patricia Smith's Twitter handle with a hat tip so that she sees it, that you reference her story, you can drop her an email and say, hey, good piece this morning. I shared it with my readers. So you're doing that. You're engaging by referencing. Get your personality out there, as I mentioned. some of the great bloggers, there's a personality, there's a flair to the way that they do it. They're not putting a thumb in somebody's eye and saying, take this or take that. That's not what it's all about. I've been known to do it as to certain companies over the years. I don't know whether it served me well or not. I certainly got known maybe for all the wrong reasons at times, because I wasn't afraid to say what I thought when other people might be afraid. But I don't think that's needed, and I don't think it's even advisable. And some of the best bloggers I know, you do feel a personality behind them. You really do. They feel there's a sense of care for the people that they're sharing insight and commentary with. They're able to weave in their experiences and representing people. You can feel it. And if they're reporting on issues that are coming out of China because they're publishing the China Law blog, Darren Harris is going to say it with a punch. He's not going to be just plain vanilla reporting this, that, or the other things. And so we see a lot of blogs come through LexBlog, and unfortunately we sometimes highlight them. It's just a paragraph. This happened, then that happened, and then this happened, that type of thing. I mean, so what? I mean, this doesn't offer people a whole lot. What does that mean? What does it mean for me? What do you think it means for your clients? What do you foresee that doing as far as your practice? Those type of things. Bring in something to it. You can also bring in your personality, where you might laugh about something, or you might take something more seriously, or maybe you get a little bit angry about the way the court has gone or the way some issue is developing. Be real, be yourself, because that's why clients are going to come to you, and that's why clients are going to stay with you. And today in the law, they're just lacking personality, and lawyers, people are told not to have personalities. They're told to just do this and do that. But believe me, the rainmakers in firms, they have personalities. They've attracted clients and they've kept clients because of who they are as people as much as who they are as lawyers. And they're certainly using lawyers inside of the firm to facilitate the legal services. Have a point of view. You're going to need to have some point of view. This is not a type of situation where a judge is going to say, in response to somebody on the opposite side, say, well, wait a second, you can't have Mr. Smith say this or that because he's written a blog post on the other side, so he's bound to agree with me on that. I heard of that happening one time in the entire time of LexBlog in 16 years, and federal court judge laughed at the defense lawyer who said, look at this position that was taken in the blog. How can the lawyer have this position today? And the judge said, are you telling me that every single case in which he's taken a position, he can no longer take a position contrary to that? That nothing that he has said at a conference that was contrary to this position, he can no longer take a position opposite to that in court? The judge thought it was very, very silly. Now, understandably, the clients you're going to attract and the clients that you want to retain and how the clients feel about you is going to be impacted by what you're talking about. So that if you're doing defense work on behalf of employers, you're probably not writing from a plaintiff's perspective on behalf of employees. So you're going to be smart about that. But you're going to need to take some point of view. Not much different than if you were speaking at a podium, and you will be if you're blogging well. You're going to be invited to speak on a regular basis, and somebody in the audience asks for your view on something, and you're going to give it. People do all the time. Nobody says, I'm sorry, I can't take any views on anything. I can't ever do that because I'm too afraid that somebody may hold it against me out here in the audience. Everybody will laugh at you and remember you for all the wrong reasons. You're going to say something. You're going to say, I think it's going to go like this. Here's my view on this. And you'll use the word view. And there's nothing wrong with doing that in a blog. In fact, it's preferable to do that in a blog. So when blogging, think about the way you're writing as if you're talking. And I was always taught that way to write years ago. Got a little bit better at it at blogging, to write as if I talked. Does this sound like I would be talking to someone? Does it sound like somebody that I would be sitting at a dinner conversation with? Maybe even enjoying a long neck beer, sitting at a bar, after work in the evening as a lawyer and talking to other people about particular issues that I may be working on in the law. It's that type of approach. That's a better way of blogging than strictly reporting. And I think it will separate you from the pack. I also think it will pick up readers because you're going to be engaging influencers. I think you're going to pick up readers because you're more interesting to read. than just everybody else. It's like that columnist that you may follow in the New York Times or a particular magazine. That might be more interesting to hear from the columnist, the person that's providing the commentary, than just the person that is providing the reporting. The last thing, and I didn't even write it up here, is Blog for Good. It's a campaign that LexBlog started back at the beginning of the pandemic to be able to empower the great things that lawyers were doing to provide information and insight on the issues that people are facing as a result of this pandemic. I think sometimes as we get further down the road in this, we're hoping that this is passing, and we do fall into some routine in life. But this nation is hurting, and there's a lot of people hurting, whether it's on consumers' issues, whether it's on business issues, whether it's on large corporate issues. And the best information that's coming on the law is coming from legal bloggers. It's coming from thousands and thousands of lawyers, and maybe 300 posts a day that are coming up to address some issue regarding the virus and the pandemic and the legal issues that arise out of that. And so LexBlog has now completed the aggregation of blog posts for every state in the country and a number of major jurisdictions. Wisconsin's just went up last week. So what that does is it's aggregating all of the blog posts of lawyers in a particular state, and it's curating some of the best. In certain cases, bar associations are doing it, or in other states where the bar associations don't want to get involved, LexBlog will do it on a state's behalf and on behalf of the lawyers. And then for those lawyers that want to bring their blog in, all they got to do is sign up, and it will come into that particular state, and it will be highlighted, and they'll receive a profile of their blog, a profile of themselves, and a profile of their firm. And for those lawyers that don't have a good enough blog or don't have a blog at all, they can get on and begin to publish for free on a really nice blog, similar to the blog I use in our turnkey solution. If they're a member of a state bar association, it's absolutely free. If they're that's participating, if they're not, then they're only paying $40 a month. But it's our way to contribute back to empower lawyers to be able to help people during the pandemic, and that's Blog for Good. So stay tuned about further developments on it. Boy, I can tell you one thing that our company has found, it is like I think everybody finds, it's not easy to just try to do good and to get people on board. People are very busy with their own projects and whatnot. Some organizations are limited in their staffing today, and they've been called upon to do more during the pandemic than ever. So it's taken a little bit longer than we thought, but we're not certainly giving up on the project. And it was this morning that I was briefed that we had completed every state in the country and now have an aggregation system for all those states. And if you go to LexBlog and just do a search for Blog for Good, you'll go to a page which lists all the states and what is going on in that regard. Hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow.